G'day guys, I think I have found one of the most loveliest sounding reverbs out there. This is a new reverb plugin by a company called Half-Light, and the reverb is called Taped Spaces, and basically it's reverb modeled through reel-to-reel tape. So if you think of tape, you think of like warmth, you think of that nice little bit of warble, a little bit of modulation that you can get from tape machines. And this is kind of what's built into the sound. We've got this nice lush sound, there's modulations. It sounds pretty natural and it's just a really beautiful reverb. Could talk about it all day, but let's just dive in and I'll show you some examples. And if you guys want to check this out later, there will be a link in the description below to where you can go and try it out for yourself. So here's Taped Spaces. This is the user interface. It's pretty nice and simple, which is something I really like in a plugin. And basically we have our filters for low cut, high cut. We can change the length, so the tail of the reverb, our blend knob between dry and wet. And there's also the output knob, which is handy for boosting the signal. This can be pretty handy if you are kind of losing too much volume between the dry and the wet signal and you want to boost that, then you could have a little bit more dry and wet, balance the levels out a bit more and get it to sit in the mix a little bit better. So to start with, I'm just going to play a piano track. I'm going to take you through a couple of the modes and show you what this sounds like. So you get the idea, it's a lovely sounding reverb. You can also get some really cool effects. Some of these are like nice, long, lush reverbs, so you can get that sort of paddish reverb sound. And then you can even still extend the length out. You could low cut, make it sort of more airy and ethereal sounding. There's plenty of fun things that you can do with this. So in the same track, I want to show you what this sounds like if we just use it on a send and kind of put everything into the same space. So check this out. So we've got our piano sound, a pad, some strings and vocals. They're all being sent to a reverb send. We've taped spaces on it and we just have it in that Luft setting. And that's just like a nice kind of room sound. So let's have a listen to what this kind of adds to the mix.
It's a long drive home. I'm staring out the window. I'm trying but I'm failing to imagine my life without you. The tears they fall as gentle as rain. How am I?
It's really cool. Creates a nice sense of intimacy, puts it in a room. It sounds pretty realistic to me, and I think that's a really nice sound. Now, a similar thing, we're going to do the same thing with the moon chamber setting. So this is a bit of a longer reverb. Kind of see what this adds to the mix.
It's a long drive home. I'm staring out the window. I'm trying but I'm failing to imagine my life without you. The tears they fall.
Sounds really cool. The reflections are really nice. Puts it in a much bigger, lusher sense of space. That's just a cool way of being able to use this. If you have like an intimate kind of track where you don't want heaps of different reverbs, you can send all of your sounds to the one reverb using tape spaces and just put it in a really beautiful space. Creates a lot more feeling and emotion. You could hear when we turn the reverb off, it's just like really 2D sounding. I love the space it adds, and it's a unique sound. It's not like your really clean, typical reverbs. It has way more character to it. These are really cool. I got a couple of presets as well, which are pretty cool. I've had a look through these. The vocal chamber was really nice, especially on like vocals where you want it really long and drawn out. There's a couple of long falsetto oohs at the end of this song, which sound really nice with this effect on it. It's so cool, such a beautiful, haunting effect. I love that. So this sounds great on our piano, on our vocals, but what does it sound like on some drums? Well, check this out. I've made a really cool room sound using tape spaces. And I've got this on the drum bus, and you can see I played with the mix and the output so that we've got the wet signal being boosted significantly, so that I only have to pull the mix back a tiny bit before I really start to get a lot of reverb, and that lets me bypass this off and on without a lot of volume disparity. You could always put this on a send as well, and then you could just feed your signal into it that way, but there's a couple of things I want to show you, so that's why we're chucking this on the bus right now. I've got the length pulled back to 0.3, filtering out some of the highs and lows, and we're on the penis mode. Check this out. So it sounds great. It makes the drum sound a lot bigger and thicker. I think that's awesome. Now another fun thing that we can do is we can push the mix all the way over to 100%, and then we can play with the filters and the different modes and create some really interesting filtered drum effects. We can also pull the length back to the shortest length possible. This works really well. So really cool. That could work great as an effect in a mix when you just want to chill the drums out, maybe just have them kind of filtered off to one side or something. It sounds awesome. And the different modes are giving us different tones and effects for this filter. So there's a lot of fun things you can play with here for like sound design. So what about as a snare reverb? Whoa, that sounds massive. That's just on the startup setting. That sounds so good. Let's lengthen it out a bit and see what happens. That's like probably one of the best snare reverbs I've ever heard. That sounds really nice. Wow. Awesome. Let's shorten it. Let's see how it sounds as like a really short reverb. I like that. A little bit of length. Yeah. Wow, that's really good on the snare drum. I find snare drums and reverbs can be pretty temperamental. It's really hard sometimes to find a good reverb for your snare drum. This sounds really nice. Let's do the moon chamber. This will be a massive snare sound. Hear how it's like circling the stereo field? That's kind of cool. Maybe we shorten this down a bit and see how that one goes. Massive stadium vibes of that. I love that. That's really good on the snare drum. I've said it like 5 times now, but wow, so good. Okay, let's go check out another cool thing that I discovered on the bass guitar. So you think bass and reverb, like typically not my cup of tea, but I was playing around. I thought, what if we put the bass in like a room? And then I started fiddling with settings. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. So check this out. So see how I was kind of filtering it, dialing it in a little bit. Now let's blend this mix. So that's pretty cool. We're not really affecting the low end, but we're adding a bit of reverb and driving the mids up a little bit Helps the bass stand out a bit more, but it also gives it a bit of space too at the same time. And I do like putting a little bit of like chorus or something on bass at times and getting, you know, a little bit of a smearing sound across the stereo field with the bass. But like, this is pretty cool. Let's have a listen to this like with our drums. So it's obviously not something you would use all the time, but if you want to make it sound like your bass is like playing in a space along with everything else, that's a pretty cool little trick while still keeping the low end pretty solid. It's not going to go all wide and weird in the lows. The lows are still going to be kind of narrow down the center of the mix. Okay, so here's one more fun example of how I've used Half-Light's tape spacers to create a really nice sense of space in my mix, but also an interesting sense of space. So I've got an electric guitar playing a lead part, I've panned it off to the left, and then I have duplicated the track, and then I've panned that over to the right. So typically if you do this, it ends up just sounding mono anyway because it's the same signal on both sides of the mix, and it just collapses down to the middle. But what I've done is I put tape spacers on our right-hand guitar, and we've got the mix at 100% with a really short length, and then just played with the filters, rolled off some lows, rolled off some highs, and then we're using the soft sky mode. And check this out, it sounds really cool. A really cool sound. And so then we have that cleaner sound over on the left hand side, while on the right hand side we have this really heavily affected one. Now the reason we're doing this is I'm trying to fill the space out, because by having the guitar panned one way, the other side of the mix feels a little bit empty. Once we have a listen to some vocals and acoustic guitar in there, it just feels a little unbalanced, and I want to fill that space with something. So by doing this effect, I can technically have my riff panned both sides, where we're still focused on the left side. We've got the clarity of all the transients of the guitar, and it's nice and clean sounding still, but then we have that really nice lush filtered effect on the other side, and it sounds like this.
I no longer know which side I'm on. The walls are caving in. I'm trapped and I can't breathe. It's claustrophobia inside my own head, yeah.
And that's a really cool effect in itself when you put the effects to one side and then the dry signal to the other, and you spread it across the stereo field. It's a really cool way of creating extra space in your mix. So there's a freebie for you right there. Such a cool effect. I love that soft sky effect on the lead guitar. It sounds really nice. And even on the acoustic guitar, I'm sending it into tape spacers with these settings here. Sounds really nice. We've also got the vocal going to ascend using tape spacers.
The divide between reality and dreams is gone. I no longer know which side I'm on.
It sounds really cool. It's making the vocals sound great. Have a listen to the mix without any tape spacers on.
Ooh. trapped and I can't breathe.
So much cooler with the effects on. Overall, I think it is a really lovely sounding reverb, really easy to use, and just really inspiring. Like, you just want to keep putting more reverb on stuff. Obviously, you got to be careful with that, but it just sounds so good. You just want to keep adding more. If you guys want to try this out for yourself, make sure you use the link in the description below. There is a 14-day free trial, which is awesome. It's always good to be able to try this stuff before deciding if you want to buy it. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Turn on that notification bell. If you guys want to support this channel, make sure you check out the Patreon link below. Becoming a member on Patreon is a great way of showing your support, as well as just checking out my website. I've got a bunch of drum samples, mixing courses. Grabbing any of that stuff helps support the time that goes into making the content that you guys enjoy to watch. If you're always looking for ways to speed up your workflow, then check out this next video. I'm going to show you how to set up the perfect recording and mixing template.